move in our ongoing display of the agenda of the Libe Committee inquiry on the electronic mass surveillance on EU citizens. You have known that we had a plan today consisting of 3 sessions, namely, number 1, a presentation by Professor Stephen Pearce, law professor at the University of Essex, United Kingdom, on national intelligence activities in the light of EU primary law, but I'm sure you know that he hasn't been able to make it. So he won't be here today, and we won't be having either session 3, which is to be postponed, namely the presentation of the working document by the shadow rapporteurs, Mr. Moraes and Mrs. Intveld. They will be having their presentation in a further occasion. So we are concentrating here today on the point, the session 2nd, which is the presentation on court cases and other complaints on national surveillance programs, part 2nd. Just let me tell you that as to the language profile of this meeting, unfortunately, because of the conditions of the room available, not all the languages will be at your disposal. There will be no Danish, I'm sorry about that, nor Finnish, not Latvian, not Maltese, nor Croatian available. Sorry to announce that not all the languages are available in this particular session. But having said this, we should be proceeding to the presentation by our guest this evening, Dr. Adam Bodnar, to whom we warmly welcome. He is the Vice President of the Board, Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, Poland. We will be hearing his presentation. He is here before our committee at the request that this organization, along with another Polish NGOs, have submitted to different state agencies and institutions with view to the disclosure of public information and the responses they have received so far. Then, after his presentation, we will be having some room for discussion, questions and answers, and I suggest first the floor goes to the rapporteur and shadow rapporteurs, and then to the other members willing to intervene. So, first floor to Mr. Bodnar here. The floor is yours.
Dear Mr. Chairman, dear members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Polish Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights and the Panoptykon Foundation, I would like to thank you for inviting me to this session of the Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs Committee of the European Parliament. I would like to underline that all views shared today were prepared in connection with Mrs. Katarzyna Szymielewicz of the Panoptykon Foundation, and basically I speak on behalf of 2 organizations. We are very grateful for the interest of the LIBE Committee in developments in Poland regarding the PRISM affair, as well as the reaction of Polish NGOs to this affair. I would like to start with that our organizations, together with the Polish section of the Amnesty International, were quite surprised with the lack of proper reaction by the Polish authorities, Polish government and politicians to the PRISM and other disclosures made by Edward Snowden. We didn't have any serious debate what those disclosures mean for the rights of Polish citizens and whether constitutional right to privacy is sufficiently protected in the Polish territory. There were also no parliamentary debate on this issue, as opposed to Germany, for example. Therefore, after vacation period, we decided to organize a conference devoted specifically to this issue. The conference was organized on 11th September 2013. We invited all major politicians including Prime Minister, ministers related to the security forces. But unfortunately, neither Prime Minister nor ministers relevant for those issues accepted our invitation. So basically they didn't want to listen to views or comments by NGOs or to questions asked by them. The only minister which accepted our invitation was Minister responsible for administration and digitalization, Mr. Michał Boni. And one of the most important things during this debate was that he declared that the position of the Polish government will be to bring to the attention of Viviane Reding that the issue of privacy should be, and protection of personal data should be subject of negotiations concerning transatlantic trade and investment agreement. This debate was attended by politicians affiliated with human rights committees of two chambers of the Polish parliament. They declared willingness to organize sessions of the relevant committees of the parliament devoted to PRISM, but unfortunately such sessions were not organized until today. I think that the only direct consequence of this debate was the motion submitted by the Ombudsman to the Polish Prosecutor's Office, in which she asked the Prosecutor's Office to start the investigation regarding PRISM affair. But until now there is no answer to this letter. But we didn't want to stop just with making a debate. During our debate we declared that as a follow-up we'll try to submit a number of freedom of information requests to different Polish authorities regarding PRISM, as well as a reaction to other disclosures or relevant issues. And just 1 month later, in the middle of October 2013, we've submitted altogether 100 questions with the use of freedom of information law, but to different state institutions, such as Prime Minister, Chancellor of President, Minister of Justice, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior, Secret Services, Prosecutor General, Parliamentary Committee, Office for Electronic Communication, Privacy Commissioner, or Ombudsman. And those issues, altogether there were in fact 362 questions, but basically some of them overlapped and they were directed to similar, to different institutions. And basically we asked about specific issues, such as what was the knowledge and awareness of the PRISM at the moment of disclosure, what is the level of cooperation on this between Polish and US secret services, what were the contacts with the US administration since disclosures made by Mr. Snowden, what is the protection of Polish citizens against potential abuses, procedures applied, verification of compliance with domestic law, what was the reaction of parliamentary committees to lack of activity in this field of the government. We asked about different technical aspects, for example, such as whether secret services have access or they use the X-key score application. We also asked, because we thought that it is also relevant to this issue, what was the procedure of dealing with Mr. Snowden's request for visa in Poland. Certainly, taking into account a shortage of time, it is difficult to make a summary of all 100 questions. I think we don't have time for this. But I would like to underline that we took into account following factors. First of all, when drafting those questions and asking them, we took into account our previous experience in dealing with freedom of information laws, including our litigation experience. And for example, in past we litigated quite successfully cases concerning access to statistical data on wiretapping in Poland. We also obtained crucial information with the use of freedom of information law of certain aspects related to the CIA rendition program. Second, we took into account the activities of German NGOs and German academia regarding this, and also some similar questions which were posed to the German government regarding this. We took into account the limited applicability of the freedom of information law. We are quite aware that we can ask only for a very specific information, and we are aware of certain restrictions that stem from the national security issues. So, for example, we believe that we can ask whether there is any agreement between secret services and Polish secret services and the US secret services, but obviously we are aware that we cannot ask about the content of this agreement with the use of this Freedom of Information law. And furthermore, we were aware of the division of competences between different state institutions, but in this particular case, some of our questions overlapped because we are not ready to determine in this particular moment which institution was responsible for a given aspect of this. We are aware, and we are aware from the very beginning, that some state institutions would not answer to our questions at all, or that they will try to prolong answering to those questions. We are prepared for this because we have experience in litigation of cases before administrative courts. So, for example, when we are litigating cases concerning access to statistical data on wiretapping, it took us 2-3 years to get this data finally, but we did it, and we think that it might be the case, it might be a similar case with some of the questions we asked with the use of Freedom of Information law. We also think that our questions should be an inspiration for journalists. So we try to promote them in order to push journalists to ask similar questions to the government. So to a certain extent, we try to do proper research regarding what kind of questions could be asked, and in order to inspire Polish journalists to ask those questions. And I think this initial lack of response by Polish politicians was quite commented in media during the recent visit of the US State Secretary John Kerry in Poland. As of now, as of 18th November 2013, we have received initial answers from some state institutions. Some of them provided us with quite comprehensive answers regarding their activities up to now. So, for example, Privacy Commissioner informed us like this. But some of them responded only partially, and those answers were of general nature or confirmed state of affairs that was quite predictable. So, for example, the Secret Services Committee of the Polish Lower Chamber of Parliament, of Polish Sejm, confirmed that there was neither meeting nor even motion by individual member PRISM to organize a meeting to discuss PRISM. Some state institutions declared that they want prolongation of a term to respond until mid-December. So by virtue of law, they have such a right to claim such a prolongation because of the complexity of questions. And for example, Prime Minister gave such an initial answer, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we also received some answers from the secret services, and so some of them answered that because of national security they will not answer any question whatsoever. Which means that we will have to ask once again and then maybe to go for litigation. But we are also quite surprised by some of the answers that have been already received by us. So, first of all, most of the institutions declared that they had knowledge on the PRISM from media. And such declaration was made inter alia by the Minister of Justice. But, for example, the Agency for Internal Security declared that they had knowledge on PRISM from so-called open sources, so which is quite, I think, interesting. Second, we obtained information that Minister of Justice had a meeting in August 2013 with the US ambassador to Poland, but interestingly, during this meeting, the issue of PRISM was not raised at all. We also obtained information that PRISM was subject of discussion during the meeting of the Council of the European Union devoted to Justice and Home Affairs that took place on 7th October 2013. But we don't know conclusions of this meeting because we were informed that formal minutes have not been prepared. We are also informed that during this meeting of 7th October 2013, Polish authorities signaled that explanation of the PRISM and other programs of massive surveillance is necessary, but it should not influence binding treaties with the US, such as Passenger Name Records Treaty or the SWIFT agreement. And finally, we also obtained information that none of the parliamentary committee declares willingness to organize a session devoted to PRISM. So, at the moment, we wait for further answers and extended transparency of Polish authorities. We hope for a certain level of their political accountability for negligence to react to Snowden's disclosures. As citizens, we believe we have the right to know what the state is doing in order to protect our privacy. Unfortunately, in Poland, this issue is not subject of political divisions. Majority of politicians tend to accept the existing status quo. Therefore, we believe that NGOs have a special role to play here, with the use of the only instrument which we have in our hands, which is the Freedom of Information Law. We also think that, taking into account our previous experience with the CIA rendition program, that the use of the Freedom of Information laws may be of help to investigative committees established at the European level. But as you can see, it takes time and basically will not stop with our effort in claiming these data, and sooner or later we hope to collect more than we have right now. Thank you very much.
We thank you. We thank you so much.
Благодаря ви. Много ви благодаря. И както казах, първо ще дадем думата на докладчика, на докладчиците в сянка. Следователно, първо давам думата на нашия докладчик, господин Мораес. Много благодаря, господин Боднар, за това, че дойдохте. Съжалявам, че поставихме на вашите плещи цялото заседание. Професор Пиърс не можа да дойде. Това, което казахте, наистина беше много изчерпателно във връзка с проучването. Вие знаете, че голяма част от проучванията, от разследванията бяха насочени към неправителствените организации в Полша. Естествено, последиците се чувстват и тази година, и тази седмица, извинете. Днес имаше едно дело за разселените лица. Вие говорихте за две неща. Говорихте за статуквото, и още нещо, с което се занимава разследването, механизмите за надзор в различните държави членки. Миналата седмица ние разгледахме тези механизми в Дания, Швеция и така нататък. Можете ли да ни кажете първо дали са адекватни механизмите за надзор? Ние поискахме парламентаристи да дойдат. Вие споменахте ролята си като неправителствените организации в Полша. Говорихте за статуквото в Полша. Можете ли да ми кажете накратко какво става? Например, американското изследване е много добре във връзка с надзорните органи. Можете ли да кажете какво е положението в Полша и Щатите? Вие казахте, че ще е необходимо време. Това създава ли тревоги сред парламентаристите в Полша или не се тревожат те от това? Каква е културата в Полша? Дали това е новинарска, ярка новина или просто политическата култура е това да се замита под килима? Благодаря, господин Мора, за това, че задавате въпроса, давате примери. Значи, това изслушване Вие ще разглеждате докладчиците, въпросите първо. Нашата практика е да разгледате първо и да отговорите на въпросите на докладчика първо, след това на докладчици в сянка. Отговорите. Благодаря за много интересните въпроси. Всъщност аз един път съм присъствал в Комисията по граждански свободи. Това беше беше миналото година. Когато говорим за отношенията между Съединените щати и Полша, обикновено политиците си мълчат, защото когато разгледаме въпроса с полетите, организирани от ЦРУ, имаше само едно проучване на надзорния комитет, комитета, който наблюдава тайните служби. След това заседание, доколкото знам, те решиха да не се занимават с този въпрос. В този конкретен случай отговора, който получихме е, че същата комисия по тайните служби не е организирала никаква среща, никакво заседание по този въпрос. Не е имало даже молба или заявка да се организира такова заседание. Когато мислим за парламентарен контрол, не говорим за специалната парламентарна комисия, която може да работи при закрити врата и която има гаранции за пълна поверителност. Всъщност става дума за Комисията по правата на човека и правосъдие в долната камара на Полския Сейм. И знам, че един депутат от тази комисия е направил официално предложение да се проведе заседание просто за затворите. Тази заявка беше направена преди два месеца. До сега няма реакция. Вероятно отговорът ще е не. По време на дебата, който ние организирахме на 11 септември 2013 година, господин Юсърпиньо, който е бивш евродепутат, каза, че втората камара на Сейма ще организира едно специално заседание, посветено на призма. В общи линии нямаше парламентарен надзор по третен упражнявано от неправителствените организации, независимо от интереса на медиите в този въпрос. И ако мога да коментирам, мога да кажа, че в този конкретен случай, когато говорим за конкретните права на гражданите и основните нарушения на правата на човека, парламентът не е реагирал истински по този въпрос. Сега, когато говорим за това какво очакваме да постигнем, тези наши 100 въпроса бяха много конкретни. Ние задаваме въпроси за неща, които могат да получат отговор да, не или с едно просто изречение. Най-важните въпроси обаче бяха зададени на Външното министерство, на Вътрешното министерство и на премиера. До сега те не са отговорили, но те все още имат време. Трябва да изчакаме до средата на декември тази година. Във връзка с дейността на ЦРУ е то горе-долу като правене на пазъл. Получаваме едно елементче от някаква държава, друго от друга, опитваме се да ги напасваме. И именно това е причината, поради която в момента делото е пред Съда по правата на човека, тъй като полското дело е част от пазъла в цялата ситуация. Във връзка с въпроса, свързан с общата атмосфера, мисля, че някои от полските медии се интересуват, по-скоро отделни полски лица се интересуват. Но по този въпрос мисля, че няма политическо разделяне. Нали, някои казват да си мълчим, може би защото това не е нашия проблем. До известна степен това се отнася и за дейността на ЦРУ. Тогава, когато Европейския парламент обсъждаше казуса ЦРУ, в Полша нямаше много голям интерес, освен от страна на отделни лица, които бяха готови да сътрудничат. И тук виждам аз специалната роля на нас като неправителствени организации. Ние може да задаваме въпроси, да посочваме, че тези въпроси са важни за сигурността и за правата на човека. И аз мисля, че ако сравняваме дейността на ЦРУ и аферата Призъм, дори сега има министри, които се интересуват. Аз споменах Михал Бони. Той беше ангажиран с дебатите в Европейския парламент за защита на личните данни. Но всъщност той е единствения, който може да говори на висок глас по тези въпроси. Въпреки това обаче, Министерството, за което отговаря, той не отговаря за всичко, отговаря само за част от проблемата и не може да повлияе на цялото правителство. Благодаря. Сега преминаваме към докладчиците в сянка. Първо господин Фос.
Thank you very much, Chair, and also thanks very much to Dr. Bodnar. I hope you found the right channel, Dr. Bodnar. Yes, okay, good. So thank you very much to you too for your explanations. I had some small questions, picking up where Mr. Moraes left off, really about the public, the fear, the public mood. Is there fear in Poland among the public? Is there a public debate about the right balance between security and protection of privacy? And then again, can you explain why the Parliament in Poland has really shown so little interest, apparently, in this issue? And then perhaps if I could have another question. You mentioned Germany, but have you heard back from any other countries, any other member states of the EU? You also spoke, this is the last question now, on the position of the Polish government on the whole issue in the context of TTIP and the negotiations going on. I don't know whether you can tell us about this. I did want to ask the question, though. Would you say that this is a substantive part of TTIP, or is it intended to be that? Or are we saying let's go on negotiating on TTIP, but at some point before we conclude on TTIP we must settle the issue of data protection? Thank you very much.
Back to you.
Okay, so I would...
Имате думата да отговорите. Като погледнете неправителствения сектор и кръговете във Варшава са доста загрижени с това, което се случи с господин Сноудън и разкритията, които той направи. Не мога да кажа обаче, че загрижеността в Варшава сред академичните кръгове се предава на по-широката общественост. Наблюдавах германския дебат и не мога да кажа, че имаме сходен подход при нас и че хората разбират проблема. Освен това, имаме и наши си проблеми с злоупотреба, с власт, с подслушване от тайните служби. Дори тези въпроси не са още решени. В момента има дело нерешено, което е внесено в Конституционния съд и нещата вървят така малко на вълни. В медиите се заинтересуват, което предизвиква интерес сред политиците и те могат да контролират известно време публичния дебат, след което всичко си потича по нормалния начин. И просто да ви дам представа, която е малко по-различна като въпрос, но тя показва нагласата. До този момент нямаме разпоредба за използване на камерите за вътрешно наблюдение, те наречените CCTV камери. Има хора, които са загрижени, но не и населението като цяло. И мога да кажа, че онова, което преобладава, е сигурността в полския контекст. И именно по тази причина, според мен, парламента не се интересува толкова от въпроса, тъй като това е въпрос повдигнат от неправителствените организации, които са загрижени, опитват се да разберат последиците на този подход, но това не е част от общото мобилизиране. Тогава те нямат нужда да следят този въпрос. Отбележете, че имахме подобна ситуация. Политиците реагираха силно. Това беше по споразумението АКТА и Полша имаше водеща роля с протестите си на улицата. Но там нещата бяха различни. Там не ставаше въпрос за лична свобода, а за това, че правителството се намесва и застрашава интернетната ни свобода, което е поставено на по-високо ниво като ценност от личните ни данни. Така че не можете да очаквате такова напрежение по аферата Призъм, което се получи по споразумението АКТА. Във връзка с споразумението за трансатлантически инвестиции, мисля, че за нас това е едно от много малкото неща, по които можем да изискваме известна отчетност от правителството. Имаме декларацията на господин Бонин, това беше направено по време на нашия дебат, да се запази въпроса за защитата на личните данни като полската предпоставка за влизането, за ангажирането на Европейския съюз с проблем. И господин Бонин се опитва да поддържа контакти и да бъде отговорен пред заинтересованите лица. И той отговаря от името на правителството. Въпрос обаче колко дълго ще трае това, ако правителството се опита да промени позицията си по защитата на данните в контекста на споразумението. Ще видим, ще следим И в този контекст ще се опитаме да контролираме приятелство. Ще контролираме какво се прави. Сега госпожа Интвелт има думата. Благодаря, господин председател. Благодаря, господин Боднар, за интересното изложение и за направените от вас усилия. Имам няколко въпроса и някои по-общи въпроси. Първият въпрос е: смятате ли да работите съвместно с организации в други държави, когато водите дела или когато внасяте паралелни молби за нарушаване на личните свободи? Втори ми въпрос: внасяли ли сте молба за информация по Центъра за споделяне на разузнавателна информация? По изражението виждам, че не сте. Третия ми въпрос е: полските политици осъзнават ли, че и те могат да бъдат цел на тези наблюдения и че информация за тях може да бъде съхранявана от други правителства или от техните правителства? Журналистите, юристите осъзнават ли, че техните отношения с клиентите им може да не е поверителна? Последният ми въпрос е следния. Господин Боднар спомена дебат на Съвета по правосъдие и вътрешни работи през октомври. Въпросът е обсъждан по време на обеда и той не е включен в материалите от съвета. В този случай обаче това е трик. Но хората имат право да знаят. Това не може да бъде поверителна информация, която се отнася за вътрешната сигурност. Министрите на вътрешните работи обсъждат Националната агенция за сигурността на щатите, обсъждат по време на работен обед. Комисара Рединг е била там. Аз искам да попитам хората от съвета и от комисията и да настоя дали не може да ни се даде писмен отчет на тази среща. Дали господин Лопес е готов да поиска от комисията онова, което е в писмена форма, онова, което се случило на 7 октомври. Добре, отбелязваме си молбата. Мисля, господин председателю, да попитаме хората. Искате да кажете комисията първо да отговори преди господин Боднар? Вие сте председател, вие ще решите. Аз обаче казвам евентуално да бъде господин Боднар. Благодаря. По първия въпрос, до много голяма степен беше наше намерение да направим тази заявка за публична информация и с госпожа Катържина Шимилевич ние направихме тази публикация в Guardian, тъй като това е една от стратегиите, която може да бъде последвана и от някои други неправителствени организации, че те могат да направят нещо. Все още не сме започнали да работим по въпроса формално и ще ви докладваме какво се прави. Когато получи все повече и повече отговори, ще можем да убедим колеги от сходни организации да работят по въпроса. Имаме работно сътрудничество с редица неправителствени организации в редица държави. Нашата организация работи с редица хелзински комитети. Единственият проблем, така както аз виждам нещата, е капацитета за последваща работа. Искам да подчертая тук, че ние сме подготвени, ние сме готови дори с десетки въпроси, които не са получили отговор, да отидем в съд. Но не всички държави имат сходен капацитет. И наистина е много лошо тогава, когато неправителствена организация направи някаква заявка и след това даде на заден ход. Така че според мен това не е лесна задача, просто само да се каже на други неправителствени организации: правете това или правете онова. Те трябва да имат капацитета да свършат работата както трябва. По втория въпрос внесохме молба, искане само до полските власти, не на институции на европейско равнище. Зададохме редица въпроси на полските служби за сигурност, за военно разузнаване, военно контраразузнаване, но се ограничихме само с полските. Господин председател, госпожа Интвелд, ако ми позволите, центърът е създаден за сътрудничество между службите за сигурност на различните служби. Може би да зададете въпрос за полската роля в центъра. По третия ви въпрос, дали полските политици осъзнават, че могат да са обект на наблюдение? Не сме имали такъв случай, както в Германия. Може би осъзнават, но нямахме истински пример на това. Искам обаче да подчертая, че някои от нашите въпроси се отнасят за следното. Какво може да направи Агенцията за разузнаването или за вътрешни работи? Какво е направила за защита на полските граждани? Каква е била тяхната реакция след разкритията на Едвард Сноудън? Нямаме още данните. По въпроса за юристите и журналистите, водихме този дебат в контекста на работата на полските тайни служби и имахме случаи, например, с журналисти, които са били обект на проверки на разпечатките на техните телефони и трябваше да им се извинят за незаконното проверяване на разпечатките на проведените от тях телефонни разговори. А сега нека да чуем комисията и съвета. По въпроса зададен от госпожа Интвелд за заседанието на 7 октомври с комисаря Рединг. Ние не можем да дадем отговор, но ще предадем вашата молба на заместник-председателя на комисията госпожа Рединг. От съвета искате ли да вземете отношение? Добре, ще си отбележи. Добре, има ангажимент от страна на комисията да представи информация. Госпожа Интвелд, аз искам да помоля от името на нашата комисия да поискате от съвета за писмен доклад за обсъжданията, които са проведени по призма на 7 октомври тази година. Отбелязахме си, казва председателя, така ще направим. И ще съберем повече информация по този въпрос. А сега Господин Албрехт, вие сте следващия оратор в сянка. Благодаря и на господин Боднар, който сподели становищата си и разгледа различни дела, различни подходи на неправителствени организации. Това, което най-много ме интересува в момента е... Вие споменахте малко, но как виждате подхода на националните парламенти към контрола? Смятате ли, че има възможност неправителствените организации да се включат в парламентарния контрол, в общия дебат? Защото ми се струва, че това за момента не се прилага много в националните парламенти. Въпросът ми е дали това може да бъде променено, дали националните парламенти ще разгледат въпроса за гаранциите, свързани с националната сигурност. Какво смятате по въпроса? И свързано с това, въпросът е, смятате ли, че гаранциите, основните права, правата на човека, дали тези гаранции се уреждат достатъчно добре от държавите членки в сферата на националната сигурност и дали съществува възможност за защитни мерки на гражданите. Благодаря. Господин Боднар, имате думата.
It's a very difficult question, and I know that you were in Poland recently participating in conferences regarding this. Our approach is that we use every possible opportunity which exists in the context of Parliament. Obviously, it is impossible for us to enter or somehow to be active at the level of the parliamentary committee responsible for secret services because its proceedings are secret, and they do not have a practice of inviting particular members. We can to invite external experts or NGOs. The only thing we can do is just to make a general call that maybe they should be concerned about this. We have some opportunities regarding committees dealing with human rights or dealing with foreign affairs. So, for example, I know that in a couple of days there will be a hearing in the Foreign Affairs Committee devoted to the visit of John Kerry to Poland. So I think maybe it is the opportunity when NGOs or some politicians may ask some specific questions to this related to this visit, why some issues were taken or some other issues were not taken. And especially what is positive is that there are still some members of Parliament who are concerned. So they can ask questions and they are members of this committee, and as a consequence, they may bring those issues to certain public attention. There are also possibilities for making interpellations or questions, official questions by members of the Parliament. So we hope that if some of our questions are not answered in due course by relevant ministers, maybe some of the members of Parliament will take them and will ask them in this parliamentary fashion, and maybe it will produce some change. And in fact, these are so our general opportunities is just to present this issue and just to convince politicians that it is important and to rely on the fact that some of them are concerned. And some of them, even if they are in a very small minority, still they can proceed with this. I am aware that, that some of the NGO leaders have already started discussion that this issue should be subject of discussion in the context of upcoming European Parliament elections. So, and I think it could be, for NGOs, it is much easier to create something like a questionnaire or some debates with the candidates for the European Parliament elections in this context, you know, so what you are going to do in the context of privacy. So I think that one of the points of our agenda as NGOs would be to put privacy as the issue in the context of the European Parliament elections, and I think it is the opportunity for some other NGOs in other member states. When it comes to safeguards, you know, my feeling is that they exist in general on paper, but in practice, when it comes to real problems, it seems that they do not work. So I mean here especially the special oversight parliamentary committee. But even, for example, one of the issues which is discussed in last years is the creation of an additional body, which would be a group of independent experts, most probably former judges of the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court, whose task would be to supervise secret services. So basically to replicate to a certain extent the German model. Because right now we do not have such independent oversight mechanism, and I don't mean here a mechanism that would be in the parliament, but basically outside of the structure of parliament. But the debate works like this, that Ministry of Interior is presenting this idea. It is subject of discussion for a couple of weeks, let's say, in media, and then for half a year, 1 year, nothing happens, okay? And then they come back once again, and basically, you know, I'm not really sure whether there is a real willingness to do anything that would bring more control over secret services in this term of parliament. And the term will end in 2 years, and right now, you know, we didn't see even a draft law that would create, that would provide for creation of this special supervising mechanism over secret services. Thank you.
Mr. Albrecht, would you like to re-examine?
Yeah, just a small question to that, because I really would like to know if you see that, for example, your member state, that you would see Poland in the position to effectively safeguard the human rights of Polish citizens with regard to the national security activities by EU member states. So, for example, looking at the GCHQ from the United Kingdom, acting, for example, vis-à-vis Polish citizens, is there any safeguard given in Poland, or do you think that the member states in the European Union can effectively enforce these safeguards, or do you think that this has to be debated on a European level, which I heard a bit when you were referring to the European elections? Having in mind to that, I'm asking in front of the background that this is an area which is excluded from EU competence.
Okay. I will answer this question in a little bit different fashion, because one of our questions, which were presented to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, were basically about plans regarding future of protection of privacy, but not even at the EU level, but in the global level. So, for example, we know that there was this suggestion by the Special Rapporteur on the Freedom of Expression, by the UN Special Rapporteur on the Freedom of Expression, that there is a need to prepare a new general comment and maybe a new protocol to the ICCPR regarding the protection of privacy. And so we asked the question to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, okay, so what is your position on this? Are you going to support it? Is this an issue which will be subject of the position of the Polish government in future. And I would love that the Polish government will be one of the champions of privacy in this regard. As regards safeguards right now, I think that it's difficult to say because Polish law is quite complex, and we have all the institutions, we have the prosecutor's office, and we have all those commissioners. But the question is whether they can really react to this in a situation when there is no political willingness to do anything serious with this, that there was no even investigation by the prosecutor's office started. When we invited the representative of the prosecution office, he was not very much aware of what is the real consequence of PRISM and so on. So it is the question of discrepancy between law, legal regulations, and the existence of institutions and reality in this regard.
Thank you, Mr. Bodnar. Frau Ernst, nächste Frage.
Thank you very much. Ja, ich möchte zunächst Ihnen erst ein...
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you very much indeed for the approach that you have taken for tackling this. I think it's a really interesting example, and it seems also interesting for us to see that this is actually happening, and it might happen in other countries as well. And also, I think this should be taken to court. All these unanswered questions must be dealt with, otherwise we'll never get out of this mess. And we fully support this. It's important that this is happening, and I have to say we're very grateful to you because we really need this in this committee. Now that was my introduction, but by way of a question, many countries have journalists who've been leading the debate here, not just the Spiegel or Le Monde or the Guardian. There are other media as well involved. Because of a specific threat to their profession, the question as to whether or not you can protect your sources. And many people, many journalists are asking these questions and are raising these issues. So I'm wondering whether in Polish media there is a debate of this nature, whether people are asking these questions and therefore they realise the importance of giving it enough attention in the media. My second point is the question of national security. Of course, there's only a certain amount that we can do at European level because of the national competence, as we know. But here again, you still don't get answers, and national security is a sort of lame excuse, if you like, a smokescreen for everyone to hide behind and refuse to answer. Do you have this type of debate in Poland as to what we're talking about with national security and whether or not it is possible to give the true answers to certain questions that we need answers to? I'm very, very concerned about this. I don't think we'll make any progress in this if we don't tackle the question of a definition of national security. And thirdly, I think monitoring secret services in Poland, as is in other countries, just a little bit or not. It's a question of trying to balance things out. I think there's a huge shortfall in the whole debate on this in Europe. What would be important for you and decisive for you in terms of being able to make secret services somehow accountable? That won't happen, of course, but you talked about external controls. Obviously that's not going to be sufficient. Perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on this particular aspect. Now, to the Council and the Commission representatives, I must stress that we need answers. We want to know what happened on the 7th of October at that meeting. We want to hear exactly what was discussed. And if you don't provide us with answers, then you have to be aware of the fact that you are perhaps, helping to further secrecy and veiling the truth from citizens, and this is something that we cannot abide.
Thank you very much. The issue of journalistic freedom and freedom of expression is subject of discussion in Poland. I remember 2 years ago when there was a disclosure made that telephone data, billing information of 11 journalists have been checked by the Central Anti-Corruption Office. So they immediately thereafter they've organized a big press conference saying that there is no agreement to this. But I would say that Polish journalists are more concerned about themselves and about their specific cases, some specific investigations they do, than they are so much concerned about the state of affairs in the whole world. So for example, I don't even remember any serious comment regarding to the recent reaction of the UK government to Guardian and to the letter which was signed by numerous NGOs regarding this. Maybe it was mentioned somewhere in the Foreign Affairs section, but it was not subject of a general public discussion. And when it comes to government, you can see such a huge discrepancy and hypocrisy, I would say, even in some activities. Because on the one hand, the official policy of the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs is safety of journalists. And we had a conference organized together with OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, on safety of journalists, which taken place in Warsaw. But when it comes to real cases, like the Guardian case, you cannot expect any diplomatic reaction by Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also you cannot expect a reaction by Polish journalistic societies in terms of this. By virtue of legal provisions, we have pretty good protection of journalistic sources. So, for example, I know journalists who are dealing with the CIA rendition case, and they were never compelled by use of some forcible measures, I would say, to disclose their their sources of information. So they can operate somehow, and we have quite good tradition and a couple of good investigative journalists. And the level of legal protection is pretty good, but it does not translate into the solidarity with colleagues from UK, for example. With respect to national security, this argument, I would like to give you this example of a litigation we had concerning access to wiretapping, access to statistical information on wiretapping. When we started the case and we said that it is one of the measures of control to get the statistical data on wiretapping, Secret Services said, no, it endangers national security. It will create a threat to Poland and so on. But over years, we won the case. They give us everything, all the statistical information, and somehow nothing has happened. The national security, to a certain extent, as I understand, is protected. So I think it is the matter of trying to overcome this language, showing that, okay, so show us real arguments here. Don't use this, as you said, this general argument, but please try to show the specific information. And with respect to monitoring secret services, I think one of the issues which sometimes escapes in the discussions on secret services is that in such countries like Poland, secret services are still bureaucratic. It means that they have to produce papers. So every officer has to prepare a motion, a specific note that certain actions have been taken or not. And a potential threat of criminal or disciplinary responsibility for abusing individual powers is one of the best methods to control. One of the methods, of course. It is not the paramount method, but they should be aware that if they overstep competences, if they overstep laws, they might be subject of some legal action individually. and it is one of the issues which is sometimes, in my opinion, forgotten in the context of talking about secret services.
Thank you. Now we can be opening floor for further discussion for the members. As I understand, Mr. Kirkhope is also shadow, but he's not here. He's not here. So we move on to the rest of the members willing to contribute. I only let you notice that we are coming close to the scheduled end of this session. We should be by 9 p.m., so bear it in mind, so that questions and answers should be smoother and quicker than before. The first floor goes to Mrs. Morvai.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the interesting presentation and the paper. I'm a bit...
Благодаря много, благодаря за интересното изложение. Малко ме изненада, малко...
Accept surveillance and dismiss Edward Snowden's disclosures more than they should. Don't you think, as a Polish person, that it's a bit unfairly humiliating towards the Polish people who were fighting so hard during history for freedom? I'm also East European, I'm from Hungary, and I don't think that we accept surveillance and we had a totalitarian history because we love it. We were under Soviet occupation, and when we tried to revolt against it, we were facing Soviet tanks. I think it could be just as fairly said as a title, Europe's totalitarian history means its people accept surveillance and dismiss Edward Snowden's disclosures more than they should. It's just as fair, or even more fair, to say so. And my other question is, when the so-called democratic transition took place in our countries, in Hungary as well as in Poland, all these Westerners came to us and were tutoring us and mentoring us on democracy, the rule of law, human rights. And now it turns out that it was all a kind of a lie. I mean, the United States have been surveilling its people, and they send political prisoners into secret CIA prisons into your country and several European countries. They use drones to extrajudicially kill people. You know, Western Europe does very similar things. If you make an analysis, a kind of a socio-legal analysis of your own country, of your own people, wouldn't it be interesting to do the same about the effect of this kind of shock on East European people? You know, we were told that there is a free world out there, and now it turns out that it was all a lie, and those who came to our countries and were treating us as second-class citizens and sort of tutoring us on, you guys, you have no idea about what is democracy and human rights, but we shall teach you. And who are the teachers? What kind of effect did this revelation have on the freedom-loving Polish people? Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to make a block with the rest of the members willing to make points or questions. Please try to concentrate on questions. This is a hearing, after all. Now we move on to Mr. Bronx.
Thank you. I'd like to go a little bit beyond your presentation. When the heads of the three security bodies in the UK gave evidence before a parliamentary committee, they implied that Edward Snowden and the other whistleblowers had revealed methods that would allow terrorists to avoid surveillance. Now, I haven't attended all the hearings that we've had in Libe, but I've attended two of the longer ones, and my experience from the NSA representatives and MI5 representatives is that they didn't reveal surveillance methods, but they revealed mainly the range of people who were subject to surveillance, which was quite an eye-opener in view of the fact that it included government ministers. Is that your experience of the whistleblowers' information? It appears to me that the security services are trying to discredit whistleblowers by describing them as people who are either wittingly or unwittingly helping terrorists. Have you found you or any of your colleagues being subjected to the same innuendo?
Thank you. Now, Mr. Wojciechowski.
Dziękuję, panie przewodniczący.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to sincerely thank Madame Morvai for what she said, because it would give a truly false impression were we to think that Polish society, due to the fact that it was under totalitarian rule for some years, is less democratic or accepts such practices more willingly. This totalitarian regime does not mean we do not know what democracy is about. We know what it is about, and we highly value democracy. Thank you for mentioning it. Let me just mention that we have a huge tradition of democracy in Poland of many centuries. Kings were democratically elected in Poland during times where authoritarian regimes were applied elsewhere in Europe. So Polish society here knows what democracy is about. Human rights and fundamental rights are of particular importance to Polish citizens. Of course, we do have problems. I am representing an opposition party, so I will be not talking in favour of the ruling party. But let me say that, for instance, tapping and billing information, all such information were controlled in Poland recently, and there is a very specific report that has been talked about in Poland in detail, pointing out all mistakes made by national authorities in Poland, for instance, with respect to tapping methods. So this report is very specific, and I hope that this misconduct will not take place again. Of course, such things need to be discussed, and the whole PRISM affair and the whole affair of Edward Snowden, I think it came as a surprise to all of us. I do not think we were ready for it, and that is why today we have certain problems with respect to it in Poland too. But in my opinion, it should not be translated into thinking that Polish society is anyway less democratic than those societies of any other member states. It is not a problem related to that. It is a question of how certain institutions function in a given country. Thank you.
Okay, now it's up to you. It's your turn, Mr. Bodnar, to summarize your conclusions, considering that we should be finishing by 9 p.m. Please help us out with the timing. The floor is yours.
Okay. First of all, I will answer this question whether NGOs dealing with those issues are subject of some threats or some denominations in the public sphere. I would say that in this context of PRISM, there was no discussion whatsoever regarding this. But I remember that in the context of dealing with the CIA rendition case, there were such arguments that we are helping to bring terrorists to make another attack, and it will happen in Poland in a way. But it was just, I would say, publicistic, just a general talking, nothing, I would say, very, very specific or nothing individually directed. So I think Polish example in this regard is not so compelling. With respect to this discussion on Polish tradition of freedom, I perfectly agree with Mr. Wojciechowski that we have great traditions dating back to 16th century or even earlier regarding this, and I agree that Poland is and Polish people are people loving democracy and human rights, but I think it does not necessarily translate into proper sensitiveness towards such issues like privacy. I think that with this we have still work to do, and it is work to be done by NGOs, by politicians, to make people more aware of the need to protect their privacy. And I can just repeat what I've said before, that in this particular PRISM case, there was no proper reaction by politicians because there was no pressure by the Polish society in order to explain those issues. And we have written this article with Mrs. Kasia Szymilewicz being rather surprised that because of this tradition of massive surveillance in the communist times, there is no sufficient support for explaining such issues right now. That was our argument in this article. This title, which is here, I think it was given by Guardian, and it was not our title, but our argument was that especially in such countries we should be more aware of those problems that relate to the protection of privacy, that we should not forget the tragic past before 1989. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bodnar, for your fair comments. I think it is honest enough. It's fair enough to thank you, to appreciate your effort to summarize in this final round of answers. Just let me tell you, we will be proceeding with our work in the Libe inquiry December the 2nd, 3 p.m. onwards in Brussels, and we will be having the presentation of the working document on democratic oversight of intelligence services by our colleagues, Mr. Moraes, Mrs. Intveld, and Mrs. Ernst as rapporteurs. We will be having that presentation December the 5th. So if that's agreed, we thank you. We thank you all. That'll be it by now. Thank you. 2nd December the 2nd, 3 p.m. in Brussels. We will be continuing our work, resuming our work in the Libe inquiry. Thank you all. And also December the 5th, we will be having a follow-up session to hear the presentation of the draft report I just mentioned by our colleagues, rapporteur and shadow rapporteurs. December 2nd and December 5th. Is that clear? 3 o'clock.